we were here. This this area in the center here allows you to have talkback assigned so that they will always come through here, also through your headphones. Right now you just have one microphone assigned here. It's turned off, so if you turn that on, then whoever has this microphone would always be able to speak to you no matter where you were in the mixer or what you were doing. So if it's a show director or musical director or something like that, then that with that on, then you will always be able to hear them. If you ever had multiple microphones that you needed to be able to hear simultaneously, then instead of just having one microphone here, you could send them all to a mono aux, and then you can assign the mono aux here, and then you would be able to hear all of those microphones. If you had multiple people that needed to give you cues or anything like that. This area here is the preamp for this microphone. Okay. Next tab here is solo in place. This is something that you only use for rehearsal, not for showtime, because it affects the routing of the mains. So by default, if I just PFL, it's only going to affect the audio that's sending here and to the headphones. But if I turn on solo in place, it's going to change the audio that's routed to the PA. So basically the function of this is if you just wanted to hear the snare drum in the PA, then you could press that and it would mute everything else and just put this, it would basically PFL the snare drum, but to the PA instead of just here. So this is only for rehearsal, not for showtime, so be careful. When you saw when I turned it on, it gave me a warning. So you can't accidentally turn it on. So you may never need to use this, but it's there if you want to. Okay. This USB audio, this is for this 2-channel recorder player here. This is a wave recorder and player. You have your system there for playback music, but if you wanted to, you could play music off of here. You can also use this to record the mix. Or any two sources. It could be the kick and the snare drum. It doesn't really matter. You can send any two things there. And you would touch this area here, and it would take you to the patch bay. And in here, you can decide where you want, what audio you want to go into the USB. So it would probably be this record mix here. You can just send the left-right to the USB recorder, but then you don't have a separate level control, you don't have compression, EQ, and things like that. So it's a better idea to run it through a matrix and then go here so that you can go to this record matrix and you can do compression and things like that on the recording. Okay. You also have all of the controls for stop and play. If you're going to use this, you do need to format the USB drive in here. So you need to take a USB drive that doesn't have anything on it that you need to keep, and put it in here, and then press format. And when you do that, it will erase the drive, format it, and then puts the correct folder structure in there for it to work. After you formatted it, then you can put other data on it. And if you wanted to play songs in here, you would format it in here and then take this to a computer, and you will find that there's a play folder on the drive, and you just put the songs into the play folder. Okay. All right. The last thing in here is the metering ballistics. So you have the meters on here, and if you want them to go faster or slower, you can change that here. They're pretty fast by default. Some people don't like that, so you can slow them down so they're a little more rounded off by doing that in here. Yeah. Okay, so we've got everything set up now. We probably want to save some things. It's a good idea to save. So there's two levels of save. There is scenes, and then there is show files. So the scenes are meant for instant recall, so you can do scenes in the middle of show to go from one song to another song, or from one part of the show to another part of the show to change the settings. And then you have 500 scenes that you can build, and then all of those scenes live within a show file. The show file is everything in the console. There's nothing in a scene that would stop audio, because that would be bad since you're going to recall it during a song. So some things cannot be in a scene because they would stop audio. So all of those settings are in your show file. So the show file has your clock source, all of your network settings, all of those things that you don't want in a scene or in a show file. And loading a show file requires the console to shut down, reboot, and stop audio. So first thing that you want to do is save a scene. So you've got 500 scenes, as I said in here. Looks like you've saved a bunch of them already, which is great. If you want to save a scene, all you have to do is touch the box and then hit store. And when you do that, it will tell you that you stored it, and most importantly, you get this green check mark here letting you know that you have data saved. If you want to name it, you just touch the box up here and it will bring up the name and color window, and you hit apply, and then you've given it a name. One thing that I've seen people get stuck by is if you touch this and you give it a name, you've named this, but you don't have a green check mark, so you haven't saved anything. So there's nothing there except the name. So be careful with that. Make sure that you hit store and you get that check mark so that you know that you have data there. When you press store, it saves every setting. So all of your audio mix settings, your EQ, compression, sends to all the buses, all of your patching, the lighting, where your fader layout is, your soft keys, all of that stuff is all in scenes. And if you wanted to recall everything, then all you have to do is push go and it will recall every setting. But a lot of times you don't want to recall every setting, you just want to recall specific things, and we can define that with a recall filter. So if we hit the recall filter, it will bring up this grid here. I call them Skittles because they look like candies to me. In here you have every parameter individually that you can turn on or off from recall. So if it's gray, then it will recall. If it's red, then it is blocked from being recalled. So if I wanted to have a scene where it recalled everything except for the preamp on the kick drum, then I would just go to inputs, and then I would find the kick drum, and I would open up processing, and I would just block the preamp. The kick drum doesn't have a preamp, but imagine it did, because that box is not plugged in right now, so I don't have control of the preamp. But I would just block that one thing and then hit apply, and then I get the blue funnel letting me know that that I have a filter there and that's blocked. That's if you just want to block one thing, but a lot of times we want to block a lot of things and just have a few things open, and the easy way to do that is to do block all, and then now the scene's not allowed to do anything. And then we can just release the couple things that we do want it to do. So I mentioned the example of having a scene that changes the layout of your faders. So if I wanted to do that, I would do block all and then go down here to other, and then choose strip assigns, because remember when we built that, it was the strip assign screen. And I can actually drop this down so that it only does the faders on this side or only does the faders on this side. I have total control over that. So if I release those, then that's the only thing that scene's allowed to do. And then once I hit apply. If I want to change the filter, then I have to go back in here. I don't need to restore the scene or anything like that, but I can hit store again, and it will change the data of the scene, but it doesn't have anything, it doesn't change the filter at all. If I want to change the filter, then I need to go back into the filter page. Recall filters are specific to individual scenes. So if I like this filter and I want to put it on a lot of scenes, I could do copy filter 2, and then I could choose all scenes, or I could set a range from 1 to 30 or whatever, or I could just touch the scenes that I want to do and hit apply, and it will put that filter on all those scenes. So I can have the same filter on multiple scenes, or I can have a different filter on every scene if I want to. If you wanted to block things across a lot of, actually all of your scenes, then you would use the global safes. And it's the exact same grid here, but anything that I block in here is going to be blocked from recall across all of the scenes globally. All right. If I want to fade from one scene to another, which is a good thing to do, then I can put a crossfade on it. So if I add a crossfade, then I'll get the little clock there letting me know that I have a fade. You're going to put the fade on the destination scene, not on the originating scene. So it's going to, you want to put it on the scene that you're recalling, not the one that it's leaving. If you put a crossfade on every scene, then you don't have to worry about it. It's always going to fade. And then if I want to copy all of this, I can do copy, and it tells me I copied that scene, and then I could go to another slot and hit paste, and it does the data, the crossfade, and the filter all in one, everything except the name. So you can make multiple copies of that scene easily in there. Okay. Once you save scenes, you need to save them within a show file. They're vulnerable. They don't exist on their own. They need to be a part of a show file. So once you've done some scene work, it's a good idea to go and save a new show file. So we're going to go down to Utility Shows. And in there, we're in the Memory tab in the Show Manager. And then, as you saw me do before, all we have to do is hit Store Show and give it a name. You can select a show and then overwrite it. I don't like doing that because you're deleting the previous one, and if you made a mistake or something, you can't go back. These files are really, really tiny. They're KBs. You can put many thousands of them on here, and you can have many thousands of them on your thumb drive. So I don't see a good reason to overwrite or delete them. I like to just make new ones so that, you know, I have a record of everything and I can go backwards if I screw something up. So yeah, you just hit Store Show, brings up the keyboard, type in whatever you want, and then hit apply, and it will store the show. Good idea to back it up. So put a thumb drive in here, select it, and then right here it says copy to USB. So then that would copy it over. It happens basically instantly. So a lot of people wonder if it actually copied, but it does. It happens. Like I said, the files are so small, it just takes less than a second for it to copy over. So once you've stored your show and backed it up, then you're good to go. If you wanted to recall it, then obviously you just touch it and hit recall. It will ask you if you're sure, and then you hit yes, and it will recall. And again, show file, there's that error that we talked about. So we'll have to look into that. We'll get that sorted out for you guys. Yeah, if you wanted to recall, all you would have to do is just hit recall. And if it was on the thumb drive, you can recall it from the thumb drive, but you can also select the show and copy it to the console and then recall it there if you wanted to do that. All right. So we just have a couple more things on this screen, and then we'll do channel processing, and then we'll be done. The few things that we missed here, the meters page. In here, we've got tabs for inputs, effects, and mixes, which is fine. But if we look at the inputs, we've got a lot of stuff here that we're not using. So it's just a lot of visual clutter. So I like to use the user meters. And we've got 4 user meters we can build. And to do this, it says enter setup to add meters. So remember our friend setup button over here. So if I touch setup and touch here, it says drag here. You don't even actually have to drag it. If you just touch them, they will shoot down there. So if I add these things, I can put in the things that I'm actually using. I can put in spacers to divide them visually if I want to. You can add rows, and so you can have things that go down below if you want. So you can build this out, and you can have inputs mixed with buses. You know, you can build them however you want. When you're done, you hit apply, and then you've got a custom meter. That's how you built it. And then you can take this custom meter and you can add it down here. You have the big clock here, but hopefully you know if you hit view, then you've got different things that you can scroll through here. Right now you've got the metering and the RTA and this clock. But again, if I hold setup and I touch down there, then I can drag in whatever I want. I've got 7 pages that I can scroll through here. So right now that says inputs. I can touch that and I can switch that to user 1. And then now it's going to show me my custom meter, not the big overall meter. So you can customize that as you want. So you've got 4 of those that you can build. So maybe you do one for inputs and one for outputs, since you do have a lot of outputs going out with your 5 zones plus all of your monitors. So whatever you prefer, you can build those out. And then you've got 2 RTAs in here. The first one, let me get something with audio. They can have 2 separate sources. So if I go into the source, this one is set to follow select, which is a really good way to run. So anything that I select will show up here. But it also has this PFL override on. So if I have this channel selected, it will be that channel on select until I PFL something, and then the PFL will take that over. So you can turn that on or off. It's up to you. And then in here we've got the purple for the average. We've got the yellow for the active peak. And then I can also turn on the maximum, which is the red line, which is the absolute peak that we can add there. You've got this line view, or you could choose the bar view if you prefer, or we have the sonogram, which is a color chart if you like that one. Like I said, you've got 2 RTAs, and they can be sourced from something separate. So this one is locked to the mains, and that's also a good place to be. So this RTA is always looking at the main bus, and then the other one is always looking at whatever you have selected. So that's a great way to work. In the effects rack here, we have 16 stereo effects units. You can use your finger across the top here to scroll to the one that you want, and then touch it, and it will bring up that unit. If I want to change the parameters, then I just use the big knob here to change those. So anything I touch will light up yellow, and then the big knob goes yellow, and then I can use that to change the parameters. We've got our send bus and our return channel here, but we also have them here somewhere. There's our return channels, and then I think the sends are here. So this is our send bus and our return channel, but we can also see them there. And then in the library, you've got dozens of reverbs you can choose from, all kinds of delays and choruses and flanders and phasers and things like that. So you can select the one that you want and hit recall. If you have a reverb and you change all the parameters and you like the way that it is, you can store that as a new preset and name it whatever you want, and you can recall that later as a custom preset. Okay. We looked at scenes. So ganging, this allows you to link channels together digitally. We're not summing the audio or anything like that. We're just telling the computer to move multiple things simultaneously. So right now you have your left-right gang to your center, so that when you move this, it's also making the center level follow with it. That's cool. But you can also do this with channels. So if I go in and I go into inputs, if I wanted all of these microphones to be linked, and they don't have to be adjacent, they can be anywhere. I can have up to 14 of them. And if I select some inputs, then I can choose which attributes I want to be linked and which I don't. So I could have just the fader and mute, or I could add in the EQ, and then when I hit apply, now if I move, whoop, that's actually, of course I grabbed the one that has audio on it. When I move these, then they'll all move together. Where are those? So these will all chase and follow. And because I have the EQ, then if I move the EQ, then it's going to EQ all of them. You can see they're all 4 moving together. So you can use those to link things together. It could be just the fader, it could be just the mute, it could be everything. Doesn't really matter, whatever you need to do. Just so you're aware, where it says fader here, that's the main channel fader. And then routing is the send to every other bus. So all of your auxes for your monitors, and also any matrices or anything that's not the main fader would be under routing. So the rest of the stuff's pretty self-explanatory. And then we covered all the rest of those. So that's everything in the right screen. We'll move over to the left screen, and this is pretty straightforward. This is where all of our channel processing lives. So in here, we're going to trigger this screen by the green select button. So it doesn't matter what it is or where it is. When I select it, it's going to come up on this left screen. One of the things that I really like in here is that if I'm working on channels and buses, it's all over here. And then if I want effects, I don't want to have to go, okay, effects, and then which unit is it? Is it this one? I don't know. So to me, it's much easier to leave this on my RTA or something else useful, and then I can select the reverb that I want, and it will show up over here. And I can do that either on the send or the return, doesn't matter. It's going to show up over there either way. So if I want the kick drum, I select it and it shows up here. If I want monitor mix 4, I select it and it shows up here. If I want the reverb, I select it and it shows up over here. So to me, it's just a lot more sensical for workflow. But if I select an inputs, I'm going to get a lot of information over here. Starting up in the upper left corner, this shows me what I have selected. So I can tell that I have F1 selected because it says it here. This is another great place to name things. So I can touch in that corner, and then I can bring up the keyboard and I can change the name and color of that very quickly. So the 2 good places to name things are in the I/O by touching there and bringing that up. So if I'm going to do a lot of things, then I would do it here. If it's just one thing, then I would do it over here. Moving down from there, this is where our analog preamp would be. Let me find something with an analog preamp so we can see that. Where are you? There we go. So the trumpet here. So there's my analog preamp. Down from there is my digital trim. So I've got plus 24 and minus 24 dB that I can swing on the digital trim. I've got my high pass and low pass filter. And then down here in the south view, right now it's the parametric EQ, but if I change the view, it can be different things. And again, I can hold setup and configure this area. I can have an RTA here. I can have the EQ with the RTA on it under there. So you can choose whatever you want there and then hit apply, and then you can scroll through those with the view button. On this east side, you've got 3 pages of user customizable workflow here. I can swipe through them with my finger, or I can use the 1, 2, 3 buttons here. But I can also change this. So right now these are effect sends and monitor mixes, but I can hold setup and touch here, and I can have the gate and compressor here. I could have a bigger compressor, I could have a bigger gate, all kinds of things that I could have on this side if you want. If you touch the options here, you can decide what's on each one of these knobs. So right now, like I said, you've got effect sends and some ear mixes, but you could reorder these however you want them to be. And then the last thing up here tells us where our mix button is. The mix button is super important. I mentioned it a couple times before, but whatever I press mix on, that's what my faders are doing. So if I press mix on the mains, then I'm sending to the main bus. If I press mix on an effect send, then I'm sending to an effect unit. If I press mix on one of my auxes, then I'm sending to a monitor mix on faders. Okay, so it's important to know where your mix button is, and this will always let you know what you're sending and where you're sending it. I have mix buttons on all of my buses, obviously, but I also have them on inputs. So instead of doing mix, piano, mix, piano, mix, piano, that takes too long. What I can do is just push mix on the piano, and then I can use these faders to send to all of the buses simultaneously. So if you're working through setting up a bunch of monitor mixes, instead of going one mix at a time, you can just hit the input, do all of them, next input, do all of those, next input, do all of those, next input. So that could help you out instead of having to do one mix at a time. So you can go either way. So if I push mix on a bus, it's one bus receiving all inputs. If I push mix on an input, then it's one input going to all buses. So you can go either way on that one. Okay. If I touch down here, it's going to jump the middle of the EQ. If I touch over here, it's going to jump to the filter section. So I can get to things that way, but I also have the tabs going across the top, and the tabs here go in the order of signal flow as the audio is moving through the channel. This is the order. The first one here is bank view. In bank view, I can see all of the channels in this bank here, and I can see all of the processing from trim through delay. So I can see my EQ, compressor, all that kind of stuff. If we had wireless mics plugged in, then I would, right here, I would be able to see my battery and my radio signal across all of these channels. There is a place to see it bigger. I'll show you that in a second. But it is nice because you can see your battery across all your handhelds in one spot without having to go to another screen. And then I think the best thing about bank view is this copy, paste, and reset down here. You can use copy, paste, and reset anywhere in the left screen, but in bank view I have access to a lot of stuff simultaneously. So I can hold down copy and grab that EQ, and then hold down paste, and I can go paste, 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 and I can put that EQ on every channel in a couple of seconds. If I wanted to zero those back out again, then I can hold reset and just touch reset, and that will zero out those EQs and flatten them back out again. So you can do all that in here. If I wanted to copy an entire channel, like if I set up one wireless handheld and I like the way that it is and I want to paste it to all my other handhelds, then I can hold down copy and hit select, and it will tell me there I've copied the channel. And that will do everything from trim through delay, all of the processing. Not the analog preamp and not the name, but all of the processing. And then if I wanted to flat out a channel, like if this one had EQ on it and compression, then I can hold down reset and select, and it will zero out that whole channel. If I want to do the routing, which is all of the sends, then I can do copy and mix, and then paste and mix, and then it will route those channels the same. So for example, I could do one of my monitor mixes, and I could build a good starting overall balanced mix, and then I could do copy and mix. I could hold down paste, and I could go mix, 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 mix. Now all of those buses are all the same mix as a starting point. So you can very easily copy those. If I wanted to reset those mixes, and I can hold reset and hit mix, and it will zero those all out. So now all those mixes have been reset and they have nothing in them. Okay, so copy, paste, and reset is really useful. Okay, so moving across the tabs here. Overview tab. We've got we can see everything that's happening processing wise on here. The most useful thing in here is to make channel libraries. So you have a lot of different performers coming and going on handheld on wireless mics. So instead of trying to dial it in each time, I mean, yes, you could use a scene, of course, but if you just want to do individual microphones, you can save a library. So you can set up the preamp, the filter, a gate if you want it, EQ and compression, and delay if you want, and then you can save all of those as a library. So you can hit store new, put the performer's name on it, and then you change it to someone else, and when that performer comes back, you just choose their name and hit recall, and it will set up that microphone specifically for them on whatever channel you want. Okay, so the overview libraries are really helpful for that stuff. In the preamp, this reflects our patch, so whatever we set in here in the input patch will also show here. So if I need to change where this is coming from, I can do it here. Let me get something with audio on it. So if I do that, so I could change that patch. If I'm on something analog, then we have our preamp section here. If we had a stereo channel, our stereo width and stereo field would be here. This box here is where your wireless microphones would live. So you'd be able to see all of your wireless mic information. And if you touch that, it would actually pop over to a bigger window, and you would get even more information where you can see your frequency. You can change the gain of the receiver. You can mute the receiver, things like that, all from within the mixer without having to go into Workbench. Yeah. Say what?